Dr. Carter, I wanted to go back to the issue of Iran for a moment. Under the chairman's leadership, we've had some tremendous witnesses over the last 3 weeks testifying on strategic challenges and how to think through them. Dr. Kissinger's testimony in particular was very powerful. And he said, as we kind of struggle with these, we collectively in the legislative branch, executive branch, these strategic issues and challenges, that we need to ask ourselves questions. And the first one, and I think in his view the most important one, was what do we seek to prevent, no matter how it happens, and if necessary, alone? So I'll repeat that. What do we seek to prevent, no matter how we prevent it, and if necessary, alone? In your view, would preventing Iran from obtaining a nuclear weapon fall into that first category that Dr. Kissinger
Yes.
laid out?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Second, I want to get back to the issue we were talking about a little bit earlier, you know, this issue of kind of being straight up with not only Congress and the American people on our challenges. I think you've been doing that today in your testimony. Again, I have some doubts that that's happening at the highest levels. You know, the President's mentioned in the State of the Union of referring to 9/11 and then saying the crisis has passed. I don't think most Americans would agree with that. But the discussion today about ISIS, and you're talking about lasting defeat, it's really actually Islamic extremism and the threat it poses to the United States and our citizens. What, in your view, is the timeline? Because I think this is an issue that really hasn't been discussed. Some people think that, you know, we're going to declare victory next year, 2 years. There's been others who have been saying, no, this is much more like the Cold War. Former CENTCOM Commander General John Abizaid talked about the long war. I mean, where do you see this kind of defeat playing out? And if it is going to take a long time, maybe a generation, shouldn't we be preparing the American people for that as opposed to saying, oh, we're going to defeat ISIS within a year?
I certainly hope that we defeat ISIS quickly, but that won't be a lasting defeat necessarily unless we have a political dimension to that defeat as well as a military defeat, and that won't be the end of terrorism, Islamist extremist terrorism. Our experience has been this is a movement that changes and morphs and moves around the world. One would like to hope that at some point its inherent unattractiveness would cause it to burn out, but we can't be confident of that. And
so how do you think we should be thinking about it from a time standpoint?
I think we need to be thinking about terrorism more generally as an enduring part of our national security mission. I believe that secretaries of defense, many in the future, even if Islamist extremism, which I certainly hope burns itself out at some point, will always be facing the problem of the few against the many. There are aberrant people out there, and technology in today's world gives smaller and smaller groups of people and even individuals destructive power that they would never have had in previous eras. And it's going to be the job of our security authorities, defense, law enforcement, homeland security, and everything, to protect our people against these people, whatever they're thinking. And they may not be thinking in the ISIS way. They may have something else on their mind, or nothing at all on their minds. But I do think it's going to be a continuing part of the human condition and of defending our people.
So I want to just ask one final question. You know, I think one thing that's going to be very important is to continue a very strong focus on training. Severe, hard training for our troops. As you know, in periods of drawdown or changes, as a country, historically, we haven't always done this well. We talked about this when you're an infantry officer in the Marine Corps. You're strongly encouraged to read this book called This Kind of War. I encourage you or your staff to take a look at it. It's called A Study in Unpreparedness, and it shows what happens when you have troops that are not trained. If confirmed, you're obviously going to have a myriad of responsibilities, pressures on you. I'd like to get a commitment that you'll keep as certainly one of your top, if you're not top priorities, this issue of training, hard, severe training, because as you know, the best way to ultimately take care of the troops is to make sure that they're ready to fight, destroy the enemy, and come home safely. Can we get that commitment from you?
You absolutely have it, and I just would say your authoritativeness on that exact subject is very much appreciated and respected.
Thank you.